This week on View from the Top, I spoke to Ben Noteboom, Chief Executive of Randstad, the world's second largest recruitment company operating in 40 different countries. On the global labour market, he was confident that unemployment in the US is going to continue to fall, but he warned that Europe still needed more deregulation. He also warned that a lack of skills in the developed world was going to mean an increased demand in future for immigration of knowledge workers. I began by asking Mr. Noteboom how tough trading conditions were at the moment.
We've seen a sort of two-stage development last year. The first 2 quarters we saw growth increasing in Europe. Second half of the year we saw slowly a decrease in growth, and actually in the southern part we saw a decline already, going pretty fast at the end of Q4.
Which parts of the world do you think are the best prospects for growth?
Best prospects are obviously, if you look at the percentage growth, is in Asia. That's where we see the biggest growth. But the value of the markets are by far still highest in the Western world. Biggest market obviously being US. That's $80 billion of total market of 285. And Europe. So that's because that's still where the wages are the highest. And Japan. So it's the more developed markets where for us actually the most money can be made.
Europe in particular still has a bit of a reputation for having an over-regulated labour market, even though there have been quite a lot of changes. Do you think it needs more deregulation?
Yeah, obviously. If you look at all the research that's being done, if you would actually plot in a graph unemployment and flexibility of labour market, you would find 100% correlation. So the markets that are most flexible have the lowest unemployment. It is actually happening because we've had the European directive being accepted 3 years ago, a bit over 3 years, that actually prescribes to all countries that they have to take away all the limits for us to function in those markets. Implementation is a bit slow, which is understandable given the crisis, because obviously people are more protective. It's not smart, but emotionally it's understandable. But it's happening. So the markets are opening up. Segments that were closed in the past, like for example government in many countries, are opening up for us to function in. So that's why we're still in a growth market.
And in the US, do you think it's in danger of losing some of its famous labour market flexibility? In the downturn we've been through, unemployment rose to around 10% and it stayed there for quite a long time. And it's started to come down now, but we've seen more long-term unemployment than we have in the past. Do you think there's some kind of problem there in its labour market?
Yeah, it happens every time. After every crisis, there's a professor that writes a book, and it's always called Jobless Recovery. And he makes lectures and makes money on it, and it's always not true, because you always see then that what's happening is companies and organizations are filling up their existing capacity and only then start hiring. In the US there was an extra effect, because indeed the unemployment was at a fixed rate. It was at about 9.1% for quite a while. But if you look at the second page of the report, which is sometimes interesting to look at, you would also have seen indeed that the government actually diminished the number of jobs they had. I remember one report, 550,000 government-related jobs disappeared, and they were 100% compensated by the private sector, which is a very healthy development, obviously. And if we look at the recovery we see now in the US, I'm pretty optimistic about the fact that unemployment will go down even further.
Let me ask you about skill shortages. We still hear about these despite the difficult economic times. How big a problem do you think these are going to be for the whole world in the future, and what do you think can be done about it?
It's going to be one of the biggest problems we have to face, especially in Europe. Eastern Europe and Southern Europe, there we see already that the population is going down. Japan obviously has a big problem. If we really want to be at the level we are at today, then we need more skilled people. It's impossible actually for our own population to fill those gaps. So, although it's a bit unpopular at the moment to say, we will need immigration of as it's called, knowledge workers.
In terms of there's such pressure on companies to change the way they deliver products and services. Is that altering how they manage their staff?
Obviously, I mean the world really is flat. So that means the competitor of a company here in London is not around the corner, but is probably somewhere in Shanghai or in Vietnam or somewhere else. And that puts an extreme burden on companies to be efficient. One of the biggest costs they have obviously is labor. So you have to be very, very precise in exactly the quantity and quality of people you have at a certain point in time. So you see organizations that actually breathe with their demand even through the day and with a number of people to be efficient, and it's the only way to save jobs.
Let me ask you a personal question. In your career, what's been the most difficult challenge you've had to face?
Yeah, the difficult part is never on the intellectual challenge. It's always on the emotional challenge, because we built a big company, and we went from 5 to 9 billion. Then we made an acquisition. We went to 17 billion. And then we had, for example, 2009, where we lost 27% of our sales. So next to the fact that we could actually cope with that by not replacing people that left, because we have a reasonable high turnover of people, you still have to fire people. That sort of situations are the most difficult ones.
And how did you overcome it?
And you have no choice, because you have to protect the other jobs. So that's how you do it. So you cope with it. But that's the least the least favorable position you want to be in. Huh?
And one last very silly question. A couple of weeks ago, the canals in the Netherlands froze for the first time in 15 years. Did you go skating with your family?
Actually, I'm a Dutchman, and I'm not, because I don't like cheese and I don't do skating.
Thank you very much, Ben Noteboom. Thank you for that. Now we're going to play a little game called Long and Short. Are you ready?
I've been forewarned.
You've been forewarned.
Yeah, I'm not ready, I think. But
okay, well here we go. I just list a few things. The job for life, long or short?
Short.
Short. The euro?
Long.
Long. The Greece?
It's a tricky one. Short.
A successful London Olympic Games this summer?
Long.
Trade unions?
Long.
The command and control style of management?
Yeah, it depends on the situation, obviously. Fundamentally short.
Temporary employment?
Long.
China?
Long.
The iPad?
Long.
Rock music?
Long.
Sailing?
Long, obviously. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you.
For coming in.